My name is Susan Miller, and my story is the story of recovery. I'm from the Valley View community, grew up and lived in Germantown most of my life. I graduated from Valley View, and so did my boys. I currently live in Farmersville. I'm the mother of a heroin addict. My 29-year-old son, Nick, has been using heroin for about 10 years. Nick was such a sweet kid, likable kid. He grew up pretty much in a normal environment with my husband, myself, and his older half-brother, Daniel. He struggled with his grades in high school, and I believe that affected his self-esteem. He also had a lot of good friends, good kids, but his last couple years of high school, he began hanging out with some kids that weren't exactly the greatest of influence on him. I'm not blaming anyone else. He was raised to know right from wrong, but he started making poor choices. It started with traffic violations, losing his license, ended up with forgery charges, drug possession, and finally robbery. I actually saw a video on the news one evening where they were asking for help identifying a robbery suspect. My heart sunk when I looked at the video. It was Nick. I called the detectives and he admitted to them that it was him. I knew I had to turn him in for his and other people's safety. He ended up doing 4 years in prison for $135 he stole from there. I told him it was really hard to visit him in prison, but it would be much harder to visit him in the cemetery, and that's where he was headed. I went through so many different emotions while dealing with Nick's addiction. Guilt, anger, embarrassment, sadness. 3 things I've learned through all of this are: 1, it's not my fault. It had nothing to do with me and how he was raised. He had a good childhood. He was raised in church. He had a family that loved him. 2, I couldn't hide it. I had to talk to people and let them know what was going on. Even though I felt ashamed, I had to do that for support for me and support for Nick. And 3, I had to finally let go and let God. I always prayed for Nick. I prayed for God to help him. But then I finally realized that I was still trying to fix him. As long as I was trying to fix him, I was in God's way. When I finally turned him over to God, things started to happen, things that only God could do. I think it is so important to stand by your addict. Let them know you love them. Understand that it's a brain disease. Heroin totally disengages the way the brain works. I don't think any addict wants to be an addict. They want to be normal, but the addiction is so strong. I once asked my son, "Why would you go back to using after being clean for months?" He said, "You know, Mom, when you're on a diet and don't eat chocolate cake, you still know how good that cake is and how good you feel when you eat that cake. And you think you can eat just one little bite and then you can stop. But once you take that one little bite, you're hooked again." That made me understand. Nick is currently in a 13-month program at the Refuge Ministries in Columbus, Ohio, and is over 4 months clean. I firmly believe it is because he had accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior, and he puts God first. He loves where he is, he loves what he's doing, and he's happier than I've ever seen him. I thank God every day for restoring him.